Let's get started with bridges and tunnels. Public speakers.
There are two. Omar Vera, followed by Marie Hogan.
Mr. Vera.
Happy New Year, Bridges and Tunnels Committee. Welcome back to the January edition of your board meeting. Committee, but the only thing I really have to say is that I do know that so many New York City bus routes use Bridges and Tunnels facilities, and thus, essentially, is this a case? Is this a question? Is this the case that Transit's literally paying Bridges and Tunnels basically their fares? Just wondering. Other than that, nothing much. Have a good day.
They don't pay, do I don't think they pay.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Bowden.
Somebody phone. Major problem, Chuck. You missed the Metro North introduction this morning where I described that Metro North is required to get permission to change anything in the manual. That means if they wanted to use the red box, they had to apply for permission, get permission conditionally, and then demonstrate afterward whether it would be continued. They didn't do that. Some engineers decided, we like it. The manual is specifically designed to prohibit people from going off and doing whatever they want. So they're wrong to have done it legally. Sometimes permission is granted, sometimes not, and sometimes it's revoked. The yellow line is entirely different. The yellow line specifically says, the manual says, if you cannot cross on a paved area, you can't use white. You can't, it has to be yellow. You put up on your decision posts that prohibit people from crossing. What the posts are, what the engineers decided is irrelevant. Once you put up the post, you can't cross. Not the driver's responsibility to figure out what they were. It says don't cross. So we can't cross. Therefore, the line has to be yellow. The fact that you have put and not covered up the guide signs beyond it has induced people to drive across the post, because Thursday morning I was there and there were 3 posts broken. That's 2 entirely different situations. The consultants that told you it was okay, it's your responsibility to go and say, look, it says you can't cross, it's yellow. How can you tell me I can do it? So who winds up in the hot seat at this point? Sorry, Chuck, it's you. You've permitted them to tell you things that are blatantly wrong. It says one thing for the driver. If you cannot cross on a paved area, it's yellow. There is no discussion. There is no opinion, because the driver cannot know that. The only thing the driver can see is what you've put there. No material, that's in the wintertime, all irrelevant. And you put them up, or he put them up. So the problem turns out to be you, Chuck. You've accepted wrong information without questioning it. You've accepted it from people you said were competent consultants. Fire them, because they've given you illegal information. Now, I spent the day discussing positive train control. This is another example of accepting what consultants said that's wrong because you didn't check it. Positive train control went out of style 10 years ago, and nobody stopped it because you've all accepted what you accepted today. I stood out there and talked to all kinds of people. They understand positive train control doesn't work. Just casual conversations, because I do that all the time. You have GPS. My car stops by itself. There's a report coming out about the Jamaica station. Why don't you have that little GPS that said, this is the end of the line? It works on every single mile of track. Positive train control does not. Doesn't stop the train automatically. And the technology exists. But everybody's accepted positive train control and say, we're going to do another study on it. There are no more IBM mainframe computers, and this is based on the IBM mainframe. 1 million connections, 500 railroads that have to talk to each other, and my car stops by itself, connected to nothing. I will continue to speak at every single meeting saying that positive train control is the biggest fraud going. And you're complacent.
All right. Any change to the work plan? Mr. President.
Sure. A small change. We will be adding cashless tolling to the work plan. Good afternoon, Commissioners. In 2017, bridges and tunnels recorded highs in traffic, toll revenue, and support to mass transit. We also implemented open rolling tolling. This has proved significant benefits to our customers and the entire region. As we've talked about before, better mobility, up to 32% improved travel time, cleaner environment, reduction of 15,400 tons of carbon, safer travel, 41 to 77% reduction in collisions in former toll plaza areas, and finally, better allocation of capital resources, eliminating $650 million in toll plaza capital projects that are no longer necessary. We will provide additional information about the ORT transition in the course of this meeting. Now I'd like to ask Dan DiCrescenzo to present the report on operations.
Thank you, President Fulton. The report on operations begins on page 19. To summarize, in November 2017, when compared to the same period last year, total paid traffic increased by 3.3%, Easy Pass transactions increased by 11.9%, non-Easy Pass transactions decreased by 52.1%. Passenger car traffic increased by 3.1%. Other traffic increased by 6.4%. Preliminary monthly traffic figures for December 2017 are 1.8% higher than in the same period of 2016. And just a quick note of thanks for all the employees that worked during Winter Storm Grayson. Between the wind and the snow and the freezing temperatures, we kept our facilities moving and we kept our facilities safe. So thanks to all the employees that worked that day and the days that followed. The board also requested information on the state police enforcement numbers at bridges and tunnels. So beginning in January of 2017, together, Bridges and Tunnels, or TBTA, and the state police have written over 110,000 summonses and effected over 700 arrests to date. In addition, the state police and Bridges and Tunnels have interdicted over 1,000 persistent toll violators. Starting in late 2016, our officers concentrated on vehicles with covered and otherwise obstructed license plates as part of our toll enforcement measures. For 2017, 9,327 summonses have been written for this violation by Bridges and Tunnels and the state police combined. As a comparison, 1,073 summonses were written by Bridges and Tunnels in 2016. Enforcement is also an important tactic in addressing new customer safety challenges in the open road tolling environment. While sideswipe collisions are lower because of reduced merging, we will continue to deploy our resources to reduce speed and other unsafe driver behavior through aggressive safety enforcement efforts. And regarding total summonses, through November, our officers have issued 53.8% more summonses than last year at this time, with the largest increase in the following categories: unsafe lane change and disobey traffic control device. As many of the commissioners have commented in past months, the implementation of cashless tolling has resulted in safety improvements at our old toll plaza locations. Through November, as mentioned by President Fulton, collisions in these areas have been reduced between 41 and 77%. I know Commissioner Powell, you mentioned that a couple of times. Cashless tolling improvements have helped safety performance at all B&T facilities. In November, the total number of collisions either decreased or stayed the same in 8 out of our 9 facilities when compared to the same month last year. This ends the report on operations.
Thanks, Dan.
Can I interrupt? Are there any questions concerning the minutes? On the motion to approve, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded, abstentions, adopted. Who's next?
At this point, I'll ask Eric to do the safety report.
Thank you, President Fulton. The safety report begins on page 32.
Yes.
Sure.
And maybe there's a good reason for this. There seems to, I apologize, I just got to that page. There seems to be a significant increase in non-passenger vehicle traffic the last 2 months. I mean, the line goes this way. Is there a reason for it? Is the cashless tolling, is that having an effect on it, or is there other reasons why we seem to be picking up lots of other than passenger cars? Passenger cars are going up also, but this number just seems to be significantly increased. On page 26.
Right.
I just got to page 26. And
Yeah, so non-passenger vehicles are mostly trucks.
right.
They have been trending up. For a lot of the year, they hadn't been. So we need a little bit more. We're definitely going to pay attention to it and look at it, but perhaps open road tolling is having an impact. Not sure. We have to.
I mean, we haven't reduced the tolls, but we have
sure as
increased
hell
the-
haven't reduced
but we have,
the tolls.
Right, we haven't reduced the tolls, but we have increased the ability to get through the tolls.
Exactly.
That we have clearly done, and their ability to get from one place to another. So, as I said, I don't know whether it's the economy or the cashless tolling or whatever it is, but
In likelihood-
the number just jumped out at me, when I looked at it.
Yeah, a couple of trucks can be very difficult to predict. Their patterns, their month-to-month patterns can be erratic. So it's hard to say. It may have been the economy. It may have been a really nice holiday season for them. There's a lot. So that's why I think it's a little bit too early to point to a specific trend. In all likelihood, it's a combination of all the things you
Right.
just said.
Okay.
So
I said I didn't know whether there was a specific reason why you thought.
not
but-
that we're identifying as
okay.
of yet. Yeah.
While you're on that point, let me ask you this. Is there any indication that with the inclusion of trucks which were not present on the Henry Hudson pilot, that there has been, on the part of the truck drivers, whether it be panel trucks or large trucks, a greater tendency to try to avoid or not have an easy pass to pay?
That's been a very crucial issue to us to keep on top of, and we haven't seen anything out of we haven't seen any more violations there than we have on passenger vehicles.
You're watching it, but you have not come to a conclusion, is that it? Or you haven't seen any indication?
We haven't seen any indication yet, but we continue to watch it for sure.
Thank you. Did I see anybody else? Ira.
Yeah, I noticed that too, the dramatic increase, but I also noticed back in the end of 2015 there seemed to be a similar increase. I just wonder if back then we had an explanation. There seemed to be a jump back in the end of 2015 into 2016 in truck.
But it didn't happen 16 to 17.
Right.
But now it's coming back. Yeah.
It then seems to jump up and down. But I mean, it's a dramatic increase, way over the change.
So like I said, they can be very persnickety and unpredictable. The month-to-month variations in truck volume, they just vary from month to month and from year to year when you look on a year-to-year basis.
Safety?
In November, Bridges and Tunnels significantly improved its customer safety performance. As shown on the chart on page 34, the total collision rate for the month was 6.60 per million vehicles, a 17.2% decrease from November 2016, and 18.3% below the 12-month rolling average rate of 8.08 collisions per million vehicles as reported on page 33. The November collision with injury rate was 0.72 per million vehicles, 44.2% better than November 2016 and 28% better than the 12-month rolling average of 1.0. Preliminary figures for December show year-over-year declines for both rates of collisions and collisions with injuries. The employee and contractor safety performance indicators on page 33 show an improvement in the 12-month rolling averages through November compared to the previous 12 months. There were 6.6 employee lost time injuries per 200,000 hours compared to 6.8 in the previous 12 months, and the construction injury rate decreased from 1.97 to 1.48, a 24.9% improvement. Unless there are questions, this ends the safety report.
I must be missing something, but the first figure, customer collision rate for bridge customers per million, went up to 8.8 on page 33. First line.
12-year rolling average, 12-month rolling average is 8.08.
Which is up, is it not?
It's
still higher than the previous
yeah.
year.
Yes,
As
correct.
against the prior year.
But to the from last month, it's lower.
I understand that, but year over year, it's up.
Yes.
All right. And the same is true for customers per customer injury, which is 1 as compared to 0.95, correct?
That is correct.
So we still have a problem.
No, the third quarter, Commissioner, is where we started realizing all our benefits and lowering the collisions.
All right.
But, you know, I mean, we had a bad year at the beginning of that year, and now we're starting to see improvements coming down in the third quarter. Once all the facilities went ORT, and a lot of the mitigations that we put in place on all those committees that we put together, now we're realizing benefits of that.
Let me ask you this question. It has been suggested that much of this, by way of increases in collisions and the like, is attributable to the changed traffic patterns you have while you're doing work on the bridges themselves. Has that proven out in terms of the specific accidents and the specific bridges involved?
Well, we're looking at all those, and we are bringing in Texas Institute to look at some of those things on, you know, whenever we have traffic changes, right, in pattern, our customers coming through sometimes see for the first time. So, you know, that could present a problem for us, and that's why we're always looking at it, making adjustments there to make sure it's safe for our customers to go through. But it does present a challenge to us.
But we are seeing at the toll plaza areas, like Dan just indicated and President Fulton did, with the numbers improving as they're getting a consistent look at us now. The toll booths are gone. It's
stabilizing
straight lane
now.
into
Now
lane.
everything's stabilizing.
We're starting to see, and over the past 3 months, the figures have been in the rate has been in the low sixes, significantly below the 8.08 rolling average, 12-month rolling average. So over months, we'll see the space.
And if I may, for the IODs, the same. We've seen a reduction in the IODs lost time since June through December, roughly a 25 to 30% reduction in the total number of lost time IODs. So we're seeing a trend in the right direction. So the transition to ORT, the removal of the toll plazas, which was a significant contributor to lost time IODs, we're seeing a reduction in those numbers, and we have to continue to monitor to make sure that they're not transitioning into other environments.
Norman.
Yeah, I'd like to point out and congratulate you on the the improvements that you're showing since the ORT, but there's so many different factors that go into why these people are violating and why accidents occur. I just want to point out, too, that you've got cell phone text violations. You're busting people 50% more than you were the year before. I suggest that when your enforcement is at that substantially different, you know, you've made that sort of leap, that too, I don't want to give all the credit to ORT. Some of it is cops doing their job. Precisely why you weren't catching them before is a different question, but that's for you to figure out. But the other stuff, unsafe lane changes, you got to increase in that too. But the cell phone text, I mean, you know, obviously you're looking for a lot more of that, and I think you're getting results. That's one of the things. Maybe that's the last couple months too. Maybe since the ORT, you've had a little flexibility. You're able to do that. And I don't know, but congratulations.
Yes, sir, if I might. I would just add to that, too. Earlier in the year, we talked also about aggressive signing strategies, VMS strategies, you know, striping strategies, enforcement. There are many, many variables that contribute to collisions.
Thank you. As mentioned at previous meetings over the last few months, we are transitioning the former report on EasyPass performance to focus more on open road tolling performance. Therefore, we are presenting our first report on cashless tolling, which begins on page 37. The report provides monthly data and traffic and revenue performance at our facilities. It also expands the former report to comprehensively include data for both the EasyPass and tolls by mail programs. The report is organized along 3 categories of information: traffic, revenue, which is the new report, and the usual EasyPass customer service statistics. We've enhanced the traffic-related tables 1 through 5, to include data on tolls by mail transactions. For each table in our new report, we've included a summary statement that highlights the main takeaway from that specific table. We hope you find it helpful in reading the report. Please refer to pages 40 to 44 for the following November highlights. Overall, EasyPass market share continues to remain at a record high of 93.8% for the month of November, which is 7.2% higher than the year before. Clearly, ORT has been a driving force behind the increased market shares this year, and you can see further evidence of this in the November average weekday shares at all facilities, which is at 94.6% overall, and every facility over 90%. This is highlighted in Table 2. The specific facility, peak period, and weekend statistics are presented in Tables 3 and 4 in the book on page 41. Now, before we discuss revenue collection performance on Table 6, I would like to briefly go over the revenue collection process and the tolls by mail program, which will help explain the details that support the summary information being presented on Table 6. So this slide shows the ORT revenue collection process. As previously mentioned, all toll transactions are either EasyPass or tolls by mail. The pie chart shows the split in transactions. Currently, about 94% are EasyPass transactions. As you know, EasyPass tolls are prepaid based on usage, making most of the revenue transacted essentially guaranteed. And it is the majority of our toll transactions. Therefore, we welcome the historically high EasyPass market shares we've been seeing since ORT implementation began. As you can see from the diagram, the remaining 6% of toll transactions go through the tolls by mail program, with a billing process that ages transactions in 30-day intervals and 3 to 4 cycles, and in some cases even longer. Overall revenue collection is supported by toll violation enforcement tools, which are a combination of New York DMV registration suspensions, out-of-state vehicle exclusions, civil lawsuits, and DMV reciprocity agreements. Now, while tolls by mail transactions represent a small percentage of overall transactions, they are actually less efficient to administer due to multiple billing cycles over a longer collection time frame. Therefore, the bulk of ORT back office expenses are primarily tolls by mail. As you may recall, we added $149 million over 4 years to our financial plan in November 2016 to cover the cost of expanding ORT to all of our facilities. This was a new customer service need, and based in part on our success in moving more people to EasyPass, we have been able to reduce this additional cost down to $93 million in our current plan that we presented to you last month. This is a 38% reduction so far in ORT expenses. We are continuing our efforts to communicate the benefits of EasyPass to our customers, which ensures that we'll be able to maintain higher levels of market share and correspondingly able to lower tolls by mail program expenses moving forward. Our goal is to further reduce expenses in various categories, realizing operational efficiencies, which we plan to include in the forthcoming July financial plan. The next slide here is the Henry Hudson Bridge experience. As we've reported in the past, we've been monitoring the Henry Hudson performance since it has been operating in a cashless environment since 2012. But we went live with ORT at this facility in November 2016. This table breaks down the Henry Hudson revenue collection experience in 2016, which is a year's worth of transactions within a 2-year collection period. The main takeaway here is that we expected to collect $76.5 million, but at the end of 2017, we've reached a total collection amount of $81.6 million when violation fees are considered, which is 106.8% of the expected toll collection amount for this facility. This confirms the fact that when we allow for a long enough collection period to occur, we are eventually made whole in revenue collection for both after tolls and fees are taken into account. This next table shows the 2017 revenue collection rates at the ORT mature facilities, which includes the Henry Hudson and the 2 tunnels. They have been operational with ORT all year. For each facility, the overall collection rate, and that is the rate comparable to the 106.8% shown in the previous slide for the Henry Hudson Bridge, is shown by quarter and by year to date. Year to date column reflects the cumulative effect of the monthly changes in revenue collection rates. If you start at the bottom line, these represent the most recent transactions, and you can see that the tolls and fees we transacted in the 4th quarter, the gray boxes, have not yet achieved full cycles of billing, collection, and payments. Therefore, the expected revenues associated with these transactions have not yet been completely collected, and the percentage of revenue collected are at their lowest levels. However, as you move towards the green boxes upwards, that is going back to the earlier transactions, it means that more time has passed for the transactions to have gone through a complete billing cycle and a longer collection period. You can see that we're whole on a year-to-date basis through the 3rd quarter of 2017 at all 3 facilities. Now, the newer ORT facilities are not on the slide, but we've included results for the Rockaway crossings on Table 6, which I will discuss shortly. But what this tells us is that it takes at least an average of 6 months to a full year from when a facility went live with ORT to realize revenue collection rates of 100% or more. That is when violation fees are added to the toll amounts. More importantly, these trends are a good indicator that we are on target to achieving our revenue collection goals at this time. Finally, we have here the new Table 6 in the book, which shows our revenue collection rates at all B&T facilities through November 2017. I would like to explain that the goal is to report on transactions that have matured for at least 6 months prior to the current reporting month, which in this case is November 2017, to allow for an adequate tolls by mail billing and collection period, as I previously described. Therefore, the table reports on transactions from the go-live date through May 2017, which is 6 months prior to November. As of November, all facilities that went live with ORT before May 2017 are showing collection rates above 100%. That is when tolls and fees are considered. These are the Henry Hudson Bridge, the 2 tunnels, and the Rockaway crossings. The remaining facilities went live with ORT after May 2017. We'll be reporting on these facilities as we go forward each month. For example, the RFK went live in June, so we'll be reporting collections for June transactions there in next month's report. But as a preview, even though the RFK went live on June 15th and not enough time has passed for trends to be defined, our records indicate that we're nearly whole already at 99.5% through July based on collections through November. This is very encouraging, which points to similar positive trends as the mature facilities. The rest of the other facilities, the VN, Bronx, Whitestone, and Throgs Neck Bridge, are even less mature with ORT, but we are seeing collections coming in similarly with the first month of tolls transacted showing a higher collection rate status than subsequent months, which again is consistent with overall collection trends for the program. Our future monthly reports will maintain a rolling 6-month transaction period to allow for longer tolls by mail collection cycles to mature and achieve collection rates of at least 100%. As all our facilities become more ORT mature, we will revisit this method of reporting, but for now we feel this is the best way to reflect the program in its current state. This concludes our report on cashless tolling.
Does the 100% include the cost of collection?
Good
No.
question. No.
Right? Okay.
No.
Now, at the end of 60 days, there's a fee attached, correct?
Oh, the 100% includes the fees, but not.
I understand, but the fee, the aggregate amount collected at that point does not incorporate the cost of collecting it, correct? Okay.
Correct.
So now my question is the following. The fee that you have at the end of the first 60 days, in other words, where the first notice has gone out, no response, and then the second with the fee in it, how much is that fee?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I do know that 42%.
Do you remember, Ms. Terry?
The late fee for sending out the second invoice is $5.
Okay.
I'd like to know the
Now, does that fee vary the longer it goes?
No.
If you people who voluntarily pay the late fee, pay the $5 fee, if they're paying in response to the second toll bill, they do not receive a notice of violation. And once there is a notice of violation, we lose we eliminate the $5 late fee. So if you have a violation, you only owe the toll and whatever the violation fee is at that facility.
And that violation fee is fixed by what kind of a scale?
The violation fee was fixed by the board last year when we continued to apply the $50 violation fee to the Henry Hudson Bridge and the Rockaway crossings, and we impose a $100 fee for the major facilities, including the Verrazano.
And the reason I asked these questions was the following. Would it make sense to consider increasing at either the first stage, the first $5, or the second stage to cover the cost of collection? Think about it.
The cost of collection we treat as expenses, just as when we were reporting toll revenue prior to ORT, we did not, reduce the toll revenue by the cost of collecting cash tolls.
Let me tell you why I raised the question. A person can miss the first notice, and that person gets the second notice, and at that point, they should have a pretty good idea what's happening, and they pay $5. But when you go past that point, then you are now causing the cost of collection. And the question I have is, and I ask you just to think about it, is ought our cost of collection become a factor at that stage?
The fees are set primarily to deter toll evasion. Our goal is to have everybody pay their tolls when due, But now that we've spread ORT to all of our facilities, we are constantly measuring all of the factors, the collection rate, are we in fact making up for unpaid tolls, and are we sufficiently deterring toll evasion, so that we will absolutely take into account the cost of collection in addition to the other factors that we're evaluating.
And understand, I don't fault the fact that you have a cost of collection that's different. You've just initiated a program. It takes people a while to get the message. Mitch?
Does the $94 million cost of collection, which is what you indicated?
The 93, yes.
93.
Mm-hmm.
Does that include the police costs?
The police costs, no. No, they're not included in the police costs. Those are primarily the back office expenses, net of labor savings that we've already reduced from the program.
Because you have less people to collect from.
That's
the
right.
goal is to have less people to collect from, except for those people you have to collect from, for which we want to collect more.
But the cost of the police is some of our bridge and tunnel officers have been reassigned to perform those duties, so they're part of that bucket of savings and efficiencies we're realizing from our own labor workforce. So you could, I guess you could consider that it is included, even though we have not specifically taken a look at the cost of the police aspect of it in its totality at this moment.
Now, the other thing, there has been the chart on page, well, whatever page we're on, indicates there's been about a 9% Easy Pass increase from pre-ORT to current ORT in the amount of people using Easy Pass?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's one of these charts. One of these charts. That's about what it is.
Yeah,
so, obviously, if those people who are now using Easy Pass are signing up with the New York Easy Pass group, they are paying the lower toll rate.
Yes.
As opposed to the higher toll rate, which they used to pay.
Yes.
Correct. We have incorporated that reduction in toll in our analysis.
Yes. Yes, we have.
What we were going to collect, and we are now collecting.
Yes. The average
the
toll.
average toll has gone down, right?
That's right.
The average toll collected has now gone down.
Yeah, so in the financial plan, you do have the expenses that are reducing, but at the same time, we're incorporating revised forecasts for the lower average toll on the revenue side. So they are happening together, so when you aggregate them, so one makes up for the other. It helps, not one-to-one.
In reality, for, what is it, 94% of the people? Oh, well, that's not true.
Transactions.
The people, the large percentage of the 94% of the people who are using Easy Pass are using a New York issued Easy Pass.
That's
I
right.
think there was a chart.
We have a table in the report that shows that. Yes.
Right. Okay.
86.2%.
86.2.
Yes.
So for those 86% of the people, the real toll is $5.72, $5.68, whatever it is these days. Huh?
It's $5.72 at the major facilities.
I know. I just paid it Saturday. Right. It's $5.72. So I think that.
Sorry. $5.76.
$5.76. Well, close enough. But I think that has to play into account when we discuss fare and toll increases next year, because while we say the toll is $8.75 or $8.50 or whatever it is, in reality it's not $8.50 or $8.75. It's really $5.76 when you think about it. And so I think that has to play a role in our discussions next year when we get to those discussions, because we can, we're more than happy to tell you your toll went from $8.50 to $9, but in reality, for most New Yorkers, it's not going from $8.50 to $9. It's going from $5.76 to something. in that regard. So I think that changes the nature of the discussion this board has to have when we talk about tolls, because we might as well talk about real numbers and not fake numbers. I'm not arguing the person who doesn't have an easy pass. That's a whole different category. But almost 90%, and probably by the time we have this conversation, it will be 90% of the people will be paying significantly less than they're intended to pay.
Agree.
And it's differentiation, right.
Yeah, what concerns me is what you had up there with the Henry Hudson. You had a 4% scofflaw number, right? The 4% beat it all together.
Yes.
It's not on that chart, but on 4.2%. So first of all, has that number stayed consistent from? I mean, how long have you been looking at the Henry Hudson now? Like 8 months?
Well, Henry Hudson was cashless since 2012, so since November 2016 would be the ORT point
So you've been marking that number for a year then?
Yes, but the
Okay.
chart that I showed you is actually from the transactions that occurred in 2016, and then it was basically the collection period would have been the entire year of 2016 and the entire year of 2017. So it's 2 years, it's a 2-year time frame of collecting, as opposed to right now for the next chart that I had shown you, it's only for 2017 transactions.
4.2%, right?
Yeah, so the 4.2% is uncollected, yes.
So, but how's that running on a month-to-month?
I don't have that in front of
Well,
me.
no,
Yes,
I'm just curious, next meeting, if you pull it out.
Yes, of course.
I'm curious about that. And also then, what's your experience on the other crossings with that statistic since they've gone open road tolling? Is it similar? Is it 4.2%?
It's different. It's different.
Well,
I mean, we did have a guess.
a little bit different in each
Yes.
one, but is it surrounds that number, some high, some low? Is this representative of what? That's true. So maybe you got trucks violating too, and you know.
Just if I may just add.
Yes, go ahead, because you have a table.
So that number actually starts off high, right? Because you send out a bill and you don't get anything back for 30 days. So when you start out, that 4.2% is high, and then each month it falls as you collect the tolls. And we're collecting, as this shows, we're still collecting tolls at the Henry Hudson Bridge at the end of 2017 for transactions that happened in 2016.
Right.
So when you look at it a month-to-month basis, it starts out high and it comes down, each month. So so there's not like an average that is really the metric that you want. You want to see it at the end, right? Like, where did we end up? Because we basically, after 3 years, we by law, I believe, and Peg can correct me if I'm wrong, we have to write those uncollected tolls off because they've reached the statute of limitations. So this time next year, that's the number you would like to see, like and it'll be lower than 4.2%.
No, what I'd like to see is zero here, and the thing is,
that's what we would all like to see.
So
yes.
but what we're discussing here is not going to get you there, I don't think, in that this is not really punitive for people that are pulling this off. Well, now, I believe that initially, this is my personal opinion, you guys, are going to do what you're going to do, and probably you're going to do a better thing, but that initially you give good faith notice that you owe this money. And I think the $5 thing is nothing more than a good faith notice you owe this money. But from that point on, it should not be just to recover your costs. It should be substantially punitive. That's the way they do it in Europe. They'll give you notice up front. In Europe, you violate the first time, they give you a notice, nothing happens to you, you do the right thing. Next time, it's $300. Next time, it's $1,000. So people get the idea, and they will learn from that. Now, I understand you also have trouble with the other jurisdictions and collecting from the other jurisdictions, and I'm curious about that too, but whether that's for another time. But
do you have any recidivist data in that 4%?
I think it's the arrests and the summonses and so forth.
Yeah, we get data on violators that come through the facilities, and law enforcement wise, we look to see the times they're coming through, how many of them are coming through, and we deploy our resources to those facilities at those times to try to catch those violators that are already in suspension. Their registration's already been suspended because they're persistent toll violators. And we also have the out-of-states that we have the exclusionary list. They follow the same pattern, and when they get to the point where we would suspend you if you were in New York, but if you're outside of New York, you go on an exclusionary list, you go into our license plate readers, and we stop you also when you receive a summons in that case.
That is done on the basis that you've had a second, third, or fourth offense?
That's after you've received multiple notices, and then you receive the notice that your registration will be suspended, and if you don't pay the toll, or if you don't have some type of period where you can contest the toll and you just let it go, then your registration then does become suspended, and then it goes into our license plate readers.
I'm not being clear at that. Do you have any data which shows that there are people who've done this 3 times,
4 times, 5 times? You have that data? I don't need it now, but do you have it?
Are you talking about repeat toll violators or people who've had their registration suspended more than once?
Repeat toll violators.
By definition, the people whose registrations we submit for suspension are repeat toll violators because there's a threshold number of violations.
Oh, okay.
So that under the DMV regulation, you have to have at least 3 unpaid tolls and fees on different days within the last 5 years. As a practical matter, we start at the top so that and go down so that the people whose registrations we have suspended typically have in excess of 30 or 40 toll violations on different days. These are indeed persistent toll violators.
Do we have? I assume, although maybe I shouldn't make this assumption, I assume there are some people who go over without an easy pass, get your letter, pay the bill, do it again, do it again, do it again, pay the bill each time.
People who are consistent tolls by mail customers?
Yes.
I believe that is true, yes.
And we keep track of them, of who they are, and tell them they're paying a higher toll than they should, or something like that. I mean, because I assume the person who goes over without an easy pass comes back without an easy pass, or we assume to some degree they're making 2 trips.
The toll bills do include information about converting to easy pass and saving money.
But do we send out? Let me rephrase the question this way: do we send out a separate letter to them, a separate bill to them each time they do it, or do we combine one bill into a variety of, these are not violators. Technically, they haven't violated the law. They're just paying by mail. Do we send them one letter for the week or one letter for the month, or what do we do?
Toll bills aggregate tolls incurred among the agencies with cashless tolling.
Okay.
So it's the Thruway and the Port Authority. If you have used all 3 facilities during the time period, you will get a one toll bill.
And what is that time period? A week, a month?
Typically, 30 days.
30 days. So at the end of, in February, if I don't have an Easy Pass, I will get a letter from the Easy Pass people, for lack of a better term, telling me, here's all the times in January I went over a facility that has cashless tolling, and it equals 20 times, equals $160, and if I send you $160, I start all over again.
Correct.
Without any... Okay. Okay.
What is the legal penalty for operating a motor vehicle when your registration is suspended?
It's a criminal court summons, so what we do in the field, we have to take the license plates and take the vehicle from the person, move the person to a safe location, obviously, and then they have to fix the reason why their registration was suspended. In their case, would be persistent toll violators. They have to try to fix that toll.
And And you keep track of how many of these are repeat offenders, I assume?
Yes. Well, we'll have their information if there's repeat offenders in the system.
Thank you.
This is assuming, of course, that the camera's catching them. So, like, they could be playing roulette with the whole thing, and you catch them now and then. The guy beats you now and then. He makes out in the long run, and that's why they keep repeating. But with me, I guess maybe I remember when I was young and dumb and happened to have jumped turnstiles in my younger age, which I think the statute of limitations probably passed. But it's just a huge discrepancy in the way people are treated. If you get a young, dumb kid from the projects, jumps the turnstiles, they dump him in tombs. These people don't even get a slap on the wrist. They're persistent violators, sneering in the face of the system. And then, I don't know about you, but I read this stuff in the newspaper about them complaining when they do get the letter in the, I mean, you guys must really get mad about it. I read it, I go, yeah, I know what this guy's saying. But they all say, oh, no, I never got the notice, I don't know what happened, blah, 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 blah. They play dumb, and they just get away with it over and over and over again. Probably the same people playing with their cell phones, they're driving along too fast. I mean, it's a series of social pathologies these people have. But that's, don't get me going too far, but I do think that, it's not your fault. I guess it's maybe the board's responsibility to initiate driving these penalties higher for these perpetual violators and scofflaws.
One other question, if I might. What do we do about rental car companies or rental cars in that context?
We send toll bills, and there's a provision that we have for a transfer of responsibility to the rental car person who rented the rental car.
The renter.
The renter.
Because I don't know, I've never rented a car in New York, so I can't tell you, does the rental car company charge the renter for a fee based upon the assumption that they're going to go over a facility which is tolled? They do that in Florida. I know, I just rented a car in Florida, and that's what I had to do.
They bill you. It gets added to your bill once a toll is added.
So they do it that way. Okay.
Yeah, no, I did that in Florida, and I had to rent a car in New York. Both places, they ask for your credit card, and they bill your credit card.
Unless you paid it.
Anything else?
Yes.
Commissioner, can I just make one comment? With the enforcement for the suspended registrations, just to throw it out there, we started off with in the beginning of 2016 and rolled into 2017 on having a robust license plate reader or LPR program. And I just want to throw it out there that we already caught, like I mentioned earlier, over 1,000 persistent toll violators through that enforcement with the state police and TBTA officers that are out there. So there are things, there's definitely better things or more things that we can do, but I think we're a little bit of ahead of the curve in law enforcement regarding the LPR and the way we put the plates into the system and try to track these people the best we can. So I don't want people to think that if they violate, they're driving through. We're out there looking for them. The plates in our system, we're going to catch them.
Is that reader sophisticated enough to recognize when someone is either has a flip down license plate to change their plate depending on where they are, or have adjusted their plate in any way?
That's why the toll enforcement efforts are a combination of the license plate readers and going after these covered or obstructed plates, because both of those combined, you have to do both at the same time, because your point is well made that if you don't do one without the other, you're going to lose something. So those are the two first big hurdles that we're trying to attack as we went through 2017.
Well, I think, you use your broken windows theory on these automobile violators. I think you're going to find a lot of coincidence between the guy. I mean, if you're busting 48% more people with the cell phone, ultimately you're going to find some idiots that have gone through. And had there been sufficient penalties attached to it, then you can correct people's behavior because the word will get out. And maybe those newspaper articles aren't so bad because everybody knows what game's being played, and ultimately you want a zero up there, like I said.
The financial report for November begins on page 45. We are still comparing results against the mid-year forecast. First is the report on toll revenue. Toll revenue through November was $1.757 billion, which is just slightly better than planned by about $500,000. Next is traffic. For traffic through November, we are 0.9% better than planned, or an increase of 2.6 million crossings. Preliminary 2017 year-end results for both traffic and revenue are still being finalized. However, the numbers indicate that traffic for the year reached almost 310 million crossings, which surpasses our 2016 record of 307 million vehicle trips across our facilities, and it is 3.1 million crossings greater than our November forecast. Preliminary toll revenue is approximately $1.918 billion, which is almost $12 million higher than our November plan forecast. The report on expenses. Expenses were $451.4 million through November, which is about $38.1 million, or 7.8% lower than plan. Our non-labor costs were 10.1% less than plan, or $23.1 million, due primarily to the timing of expenses. Labor costs were lower as well by about $15 million, or 5.8%, due to payroll vacancies. Our overtime is down 4.1% against plan, and that is about $1.2 million. Our support to mass transit was over $1.055 billion through November, which is about $66.3 million, or 6.7% better than plan. This concludes the financial report. I think in the book right now it's 171. That's what we have in the report for November at the moment.
I guess we can, capital program?
The report on the capital program begins on page 62. The report contains performance metrics for both December and for 2017 as a whole. To summarize, B&T significantly exceeded our 2017 capital program goals. Total commitments at $676.1 million were 28% better than our goal of $527.7 million. Total completions at $832.9 million were 57% better than our goal of $531.4 million. Additional details are contained in the report. Unless there are any questions, that concludes my report.
Just a quick question on page 63. Rehabilitation of the concrete skewbacks. What are those?
Skewbacks are the substructure concrete, large concrete blocks that the arch at the Henry Hudson frames into. So it's the substructure supporting the arch.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Procurements, I guess.
Yep. Procurement start on page 83. There's one competitive procurement and 3 ratifications in the total amount of $26.21 million. The competitive procurement is to award a new personal service contract to perform maritime security services at all facilities in a negotiated amount of $1,682,487.90. The ratifications are as follows. The first item is at the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge for deck strengthening, security tower fabrication and installation, power distribution upgrades, in a negotiated amount of $13,925,775.26. The second item is at the Queens Midtown Tunnel for power distribution upgrades and electrical work associated with the security towers for $7.3 million. We are also seeking approval for an additional $1.3 million, making the total negotiated amount $8.6 million. The third item is also at the RFK Bridge for additional design and construction support services to support open road tolling and the Command and Control Center for $1,381,300. We are also seeking approval for an additional $626,074.29, making the total negotiated amount $2,007,374.29. Unless there are any questions, these procurements are described in detail in the enclosed staff summaries.
Does anyone want to split up the ratifications from the procurements. Questions? I have a question. You have on page 90 the Judlow contract.
Correct.
In at least one other, and I think two other meetings, I have suggested that Judlow, having a record of SAIs over recent years, that an integrity monitor be appointed. I believe it was in transit that they have agreed to do so.
Yeah, they currently have a monitor under that.
They have a monitor on
Yes.
this job?
Yes.
Okay. And who does that monitor report to?
I guess eventually they report to us.
Sorry?
Eventually the report comes back to the authority.
Comes back to who?
Is it the authority?
Oh, all right. Well, who at the authority?
Well, procurement would get a copy as well as an engineering.
Do you get a copy is the key issue?
Yes.
All right. I would assume the chief would get one, wouldn't he?
And the chief engineer gets a copy.
All right. Very good. Any further questions? All those in favor of the ratifications and procurements? Contrary minded, abstentions, done. And that, I believe, permits me to ask for a resolution to adjourn. Second, any objections? Done.